mean, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of high school basketball coaches on the men's side, I was trying to think who has had your success, and I can only think of Charlie Thompson and Don McCool. A lot of times, I think when we talk about Northern Virginia basketball, like even when we started this Facebook group, we call it the Northern Region Group, and then we realized early there's especially three schools down there that are always there. Potomac, Garfield, Woodbridge, and for some reason they were never part of the Northern Region. And I think to a large degree we were lucky because you guys were more athletic. You're very tough. It would be adding three more TC Williamses sometimes to the region. Yeah, and then you guys instead, you guys had to go down there and play those tough road games in the region. You had to go down there and play Danville and Fleming and Patrick Henry sometimes. So I don't think it did you guys any benefit by being down there. But anyway, I'm glad you did this. As you know, we've been doing this Facebook group, and we started doing a couple of interviews, and I just want to talk to you about your basketball journey, and maybe just give go through and how you got started, and maybe your philosophy on it and where the game is going. So maybe you can just start us off talking about, where'd you go to high school, where'd you play ball, and we'll go from there.
Okay, great. Yeah, even before I get to that, back in 1990, I was inducted into the Bethany College Hall of Fame, which was very nice. And there was 3 or 4 guys getting inducted at that time, and I think I was the third. And the second guy up was basically a stand-up comedian. He had everybody in stitches. They're just roaring, having the wonderful time. And then up steps, Kendall Hayes, 32, scared to talk in front of a microphone. And I'm like, oh, look what I got to follow. So I didn't think I'd have to do that again. And then I look at the Jim Lewis interview and I'm like, oh, geez, here it comes again. So yeah, you didn't do me any favors there. I gotta tell you as much.
He's very tough because even when you're talking to him, he's so sharp and he's quick, and his mind goes a million miles an hour. And Will Robinson warned me he was going to be like that. I should have listened to him.
Yeah, no, he was very good and very knowledgeable. And we actually have, a couple things that we'll get to it. I'll probably digress quite often here. I'm still teaching, and I think the kids like it when I digress because they just sit. I don't think they like the stories much, but it means they're not doing anything, and it amuses me. So it works out for both sides in the classroom there.
Well, I'm just glad you're doing it, so I appreciate it. So why don't you go? The floor is yours. Yeah.
All right. Well, I grew up in Alexandria, Virginia.
Oh, wow.
I went to Maury Elementary School right there. It's kind of in the shadows of the Masonic Temple. Let's see. I can tie this in. There's a couple. I've got some connections to. I'll get to them. But was there just had a good time there. Was probably I think 13. My dad died before I went into between the summer of 2nd and 3rd grade, wow. And then by the time I was 13, I think my mom remarried at that time, and we moved down to Fairfax County. And I think that was at the time I was at St. Stephen's. I went to St. Stephen's for 3 years. But we were in Fairfax County, ended up going to Groveton, just, as Jim did, and played my senior year there.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, that was quite fun. Winky Whalen was my coach. It was his first year. We had a real good year, went 16-5. We couldn't beat Robert E. Lee that year, unfortunately. Right. I think they ended up finishing second in the state that year.
That was Bucky Roman's team.
Bucky Roman, Mm-hmm. I think they were second in the state, and we were good. I was a little too finesse. I think they needed a tougher inside guy than me, but I was all we had. So,
well, you're from St. Stephen's. What did they expect?
I know. I was, getting out of there was stepping into the halls of Groveton as a sophomore kind of opened my eyes, but it was so much fun. I really enjoyed my time there quite a bit. And we had a good team. We had Greg Morris, a good buddy of mine, was a starter. Glenn Wheeler. I don't know if you remember Keith Houston. Keith ended up going to Delta State and playing. And of course myself, and then Jeff Fells, one of the many Fells brothers. Jeff was just as tough as they come. So, it was a good group. We had some good guys coming off the bench. It was a lot of fun at Groveton.
You probably played 3. I imagine you're probably a 3 or 4. Or
no, well, I was a 5 at Groveton. Yeah. That
No.
was, I was about 6'4",
Right.
grew a couple inches in, my first year of college. And, but I can go through the college or go through
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
tell you, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, did you know in high school that you were going to be a coach? Like I know, like when I look at some of your players that you've coached, like the fact that Sherman Rivers is a coach now would not surprise me at all, because that's the way he played when we played. He was a very cerebral player, under control.
Right.
He was like your coach on the floor when you coached him.
Sure.
Did you always want to be a coach, or did you just?
I got I got probably into my junior year in college, and I was a communication major. And I started thinking, I don't want to write about this. I'd rather be participating. So, at that point, I really wanted to coach. And as soon as I got out of school, Winky Whalen, asked me if I wanted to coach, and I coached his freshman team.
Wow.
And then I think I did freshman and then 2 years of JV. And at that time, I went back and got my degree or my certificate to teach at George Mason, and got hired at Potomac High School and stayed there for 30 years.
So you got the varsity job right from Groveton. You went from like JV coach to varsity.
No, I was a JV coach, I think, for 2 years at 2 years at Potomac. And then I think I was 27 or 28 when I got the job there at Potomac. So yeah, I mean, things fell in line for me pretty well. Before I forget, just going back with some of my connections in Alexandria and to some of the coaches. Remember Mike Henson?
Sure.
Mike, I did my student teaching with him at TC.
Wow.
So while I was at, and he was a character, and I don't know that I learned a whole lot about teaching from him. We had a whole lot of fun, and he was a good dude. And when I was growing up in the summertime, I don't know if you remember, the playgrounds had the big green boxes that had the lock on it.
Yeah.
And, the balls are in there, and you had some beat up old chess boards with the plastic chess pieces and all that stuff. You go out and just, all that equipment. Well, Jim Warden was the blonde-haired guy, was our he was in charge of the green box at Maury Elementary, and he'd come open it up, and he's supervised us during the summertime. So a couple of TC coaches that I got to know pretty well, both real good guys.
It's funny because
go ahead.
Heinsohn is a guy that he never really got his credit, I think. And I think the reason why is TC had so much talent, and people always assumed anyone could probably coach TC. And he was pretty basic there, but they played a lot of 2-3 zone. They weren't very intricate. And I think that a lot of times you have to manage the community and the players that you have. And I think he was the right coach for that job. I think sometimes people didn't, obviously a guy like Charlie Thompson was a great coach because you could tell, by the way they play. I think sometimes Heinsohn didn't get the same type of respect.
Right. But he did have that one, tremendous year, and he was a good guy. Now, another thing, I don't know if you recalled, but after I got out of college, and actually during my college years, the Alexandria Summer League at GW. I don't know if you ever were over there, participated in that, but that was great. The Alexandria Gazette covered it. They'd come take pictures. It'd be in the newspaper the next day, and I played with Jeff Fells and a few other buddies. We played on CL Barnes Furniture for a number of years, and then Myron Conti, he got me to play with Al Mann's Embraceable Band for a year or two. So that was fun. That summer league was great. Competition was just really, really good. And I still got a bruise right about here when Len Bias hit me with an elbow during the summer league. Lefty put his team in there one summer, and I think they beat us about 110 to 102, but it wasn't a lot of defense, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think Daryl Mackey was saying you were quite the dunking machine in that league.
It was after, in '76 you weren't allowed to dunk in high school. That was the last year. And then when I went to college, I kind of had to learn to dunk because I never did it. And there'd be a few times where, I just lay it in because you just forget about it. So once I got about halfway through my freshman year in college, I said, okay, this is what you're supposed to do when you get close to the basket. And I worked on my legs, and I could jump pretty well.
Yeah, that was my excuse too. That I thought there was a rule against dunking. That's why I did. That's why I didn't dunk.
Well, I can tell you, my last dunk, I think I might have been 40 or something like that. And
Is that right? Wow.
yeah, and I was working a basketball camp, and I had a kid tell me, he goes, that's the lowest I've ever seen anybody jump and still dunk the ball. So I said, well, that's probably the last time. I don't need to do this anymore. So
that's 40-year-old dunk is still a pretty good achievement.
Well, he's 6'6". It's a little easier at 6'6". You just kind of stretch. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it still counts.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you are you finished with your connections to Alexandria? I don't want to rush you on that.
No, something may pop up, and I'll come back to it. But yeah, go. Let's roll.
You weren't down in the Mud Bowl with Jim, whatever he was calling it, the mud bowl, or I had never heard that used before. But I guess the area near TC Williams is called the Mud Bowl.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
So when you went to Potomac, you had great success on JV, and you became varsity coach. And I know it didn't take you that long to go to state, because I was down there at the game you played Grand Hill.
Right.
You had BJ Hawkins, who ended up going to Purdue, I think, on football scholarship. And then you had, I think,
he went to North Carolina.
He did. Okay.
Well, no, I'm sorry. He went to Notre Dame. He was set to go to North Carolina, and at the last moment, Lou Holtz kind of whisked him away, and ended up at Notre Dame.
Yeah, and he was a good basketball player too. I mean, he was a Street and Smith All-American, which was a big deal back then. Great athlete, about 6'3", right?
6'3", 6'4". He was. We had some other real good athletes there along with him.
Willie Jones, I think, was your center, right?
No, Willie came much later than that.
Much later, okay.
D'Angelo Fisher was our center. D'Angelo came down from New York. He's about 6'5". He wrestled up there until he was a freshman or so, and he was raw, but he was physical, and he was something. And Sean Wright, we played a lot of triangling too that year, because I wasn't good enough to teach them proper man-to-man defense. So anyway, Sean's the one that covered Grand Hill, and he'd take anybody's toughest opponent. And Brian Burke was I
remember Brian Burke.
Yeah, Brian, great shooter for us.
Great shooter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and while I'm remembering, we had a kid on the team named Mike Karamarkovich, and he used to do something that I had no idea what he was doing when he shot these layups. And he was doing the Euro step back then. When I look back, I couldn't teach it. I didn't even know what it was, but he'd always managed to get to the basket and score. And that's the first person I've ever seen do a Euro step. And it just came natural to him, but Lord knows I had no idea what it was then.
Yeah. Well, it just worked, and the baskets were flowing. And you guys, I remember that game you went down there, and I thought on paper it was a tough matchup, because you have to remember in those years, the Northern region, we really felt like we couldn't compete at state. We'd go down to the state tournament, and we'd spread the floor from the very first possession, and it was almost accepted that we weren't tough enough to win at state. I don't know where this came from, because we had been close. In the late 70s, we'd won a couple of states, but I know going in, I thought with Grand Hill's team, I think they had Rob Robinson that year. They had a strong team. Did you think going in, you guys could beat them going in? Or?
I didn't know. I was hoping we could.
Right.
They ended up getting upset by Wakefield. No, Wakefield beat them. We thought we were going to play Wakefield.
That's right.
And then Wakefield beat them, and then of course the Wakefield game, where Wakefield didn't score in the fourth quarter in their game when they got beat. We were kind of anticipating that, but we weren't looking forward to playing it. The coaches. I mean, you want to win, and we were actually up about 10 at halftime.
Is that right? That game?
Yeah. And, we came out second half. I think shot 23%, and it was probably what they did to us, not so much what we did. But we just couldn't buy a basket the second half, and the better team won.
And looking back, how would you compare that team to some of the teams that came after? I mean, obviously you're a young coach. You're learning the game. And then, I mean, you just had a succession of great players. I mean, for the next 15 years, you probably had 10 Division I players.
Probably.
I don't know.
Yeah, we probably had a few more than that. Sometimes I'll be thinking about guys, and all of a sudden it'll pop into my head, and that's right. He was a D1 guy too, and
Yeah.
not all the major
Oh,
D1s, but a D1 is a D1. That's quite an accomplishment in itself. But yeah, I wish, you always say you wish you knew then what you know now, and had I been able to coach that with maybe 6 or 7 years of seasoning, I think we'd have done better, and we'd have done stuff differently, and who knows, maybe we'd had a better chance to win.
so that team was on par with some of your better teams. At least.
Athletically, yeah, definitely. No, I don't. The skill wise, yeah, I mean it's certainly top 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5, but they were very good, very good.
Yeah, I was right. I was trying to write down some of the players that you've had, and BJ, Mookie Felder, Roland Roberts, Sherman, Tennille Harris, Cliff Hawkins, Jason Flagler, Eric. I mean, there's so many. I know I miss some of you, and they're all very scrappy players. They defend, full court. They score in transition. A lot of them are good outside shooters. I mean, they just play your style of basketball, or maybe you adopted that style because those are the kind of kids you were getting.
Yeah. Well, when we first started, I told the kids, and this is even before we had, the real good teams. I said, we're going to play as fast as we can, so long as you're not turning the ball over. So we wanted to go fast, and we wanted to play fast, but that kind of evolved. It's funny, we used to go down to Stafford High School. They'd hold a little kind of tournament thing in the off season, a summer thing. And they had a coach named Don DeMaria, who was a good coach down there at Stafford. And he said something wise to me back then. And I was a new coach, and, new coach, you're always, what I did, I'm always reading stuff and thinking this may work and that may work, and I'm going to try this and try that. And he said to me one time, he says, you got to figure out what you want to do and do it. And I guess he recognized just the fact that, we were changing up a lot, and that I needed to establish an identity for the team. And, we ended up doing that. And maybe not the year after that, but I did get the team to have an identity, and it was very successful for us.
Do you think it was a big advantage for you to have kids from Dale City? Your kids, like I said, they're a little bit more hard scrabble than the kids in the Northern region. You guys, physical kids. Will Robinson always told me he thought the demographics of that area, you guys, that feed into your guys' school, was a big advantage to you guys. Did you feel the same way?
No, I thought it was all coaching. Personally, I don't know what Will was talking about. I don't believe a word that man says.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, obviously it was, but it wasn't like that. When I got there. This was kind of a gradual thing, and but you want to have tough guys. You want to have kids that have an edge, and we had, the teams we had with kids that didn't have an edge weren't as good as the ones that had a little chip on their shoulder when they're out there on the floor.
Yeah, I always thought you did a real good job. To me, one of your strengths from afar was you handled big personalities really well. It's very tough, when you have players like Mookie Felder. I don't know him, but you can tell by his body language he's got a big personality. And you had others, great players. And I think a lot of times, in Northern region, it's very easy for kids to go to private school because the private schools are closer. You had a little more distance, which was to your favor. But I think also to your credit, it was kind of like Wendell Bird. Once you prove you can keep these kids, they'll keep coming. They know it's an honor to play at South Lakes or Potomac. They don't Joey Beard, and I mean you can go down the line. South Lakes is just like Potomac. Once you have the reputation of keeping these kids, they'll keep coming to you.
Yeah, well, and I think that's true. And the demographics are important, but you have to kind of know what to do and what not to do. And I think one of the things with coaching is when you have good players, not screwing it up, not trying to do too much, not trying to overcoach. And I think sometimes when you don't overcoach, I mean, from afar, it looks like you're not doing anything, or they're just letting them run up and down the floor. But there's a method to the madness, and the kids would tell you that. I mean, there were things that we did, and that a lot of people didn't know, and there's things defensively that we would attempt to do and try to do and accomplish. quite often to get the pace going and to get a lot of possessions. And I think when players see that you're going to play a style that they enjoy, that they want to stick around. And guys like Mookie, really helped establish us in that it just meant so much to them to win and to compete. And they demanded out of others on the court that you're going to do this. Mookie would, he'd square off on somebody in practice if they weren't, putting up the effort that he thought they should be doing. And this translated to open gyms, that kind of stuff too. I mean, they would come and everybody's playing exceptionally hard all the time. And that's a tribute to the kids and just their love for the school. And Sherman can tell you, we had just great open gym game, because there's lots of kids, and we'd get some of the older kids would come back and play at times, and just very high level. And it was enjoyable. It was a lot of fun. But Mookie's, he's one. I mean, we had just across the street, and there's a couple. Now you start naming kids, and that's bad because who's your favorite child? Then you get in trouble. But some of you didn't mention that I was kind of whirling in my head is some other D1 kids. We had a kid named Cameron Kirby. Who, he was D1. Janavis Drawn. Remember, Janavis went
absolutely,
and Janavis is about 6'4" and had the best offhand of any kid I can. He could play left-handed as well as right-handed. Very good. Another tough kid we had that was on the state championship team was a guy named Calvin Hargett, 6'4", and Calvin,
sure.
Just one of my all-time favorite players. He played so hard, and it just that rubs off on the other guys if you're not going to do that, and you got Mookie and Calvin growling at you. It's a little intimidating. You forget Mike Neal on the state championship team.
Sure.
I can think back during a practice, and I think one of the questions you were talking about is that state championship team we had. I think the biggest problem, at least for me, was the fact that, we did expect to win it with that group because, in practice, I'm looking one time and just looking across the court, and I've got Roland in the middle here. And then on either side of him, you got Mike Neal and Tennell Harris. And I'm, just a smile. I mean, you can't help but think, we've got the tools to do this, and we should. So, we really went through a gauntlet of teams that year. There were so many good teams that year.
Danville was really good that year, I believe, right?
Danville was exceptional, and that's one of the big problems with the region that we had. Of course, you had your northern region, and we can talk northern region and northwest region in a moment if you remind me. But you had your northern region, and then you had Richmond, and then you had Norfolk and the Beach, and then the rest of the state. You got this contorted, we'd drive 5 miles in a nice bus to get to a game. So
because you had all the medium-sized cities, like Roanoke, Danville, Winchester. They all had AAA teams, and that made up the Northwest region, kind of.
And Lord knows where you were going to go. It was just all over the place. And you go down to Danville, and you're not going to get any breaks down there. I mean, it's not happening. And then of course they didn't get many when they came up to our place either, but we had to play them up at our place, and just a raucous game. And then we had a great TC team that we played at Garfield.
That was a great team.
Yeah, and we walked into that an hour before. The stands were packed on both sides. There was people knocking on the windows trying to get in, from us. So this thing, an hour before, there was a stir, and the kids walking in and looking up and seeing all that. It was, and the coaches as well. It was fun. But then we had, the first round we played, and we were actually maybe it was the semifinals. Yeah, we played. The kid that went to North Carolina. Brother played at Duke. No, his brother. No, not that one. That was later. His brothers played at Duke, is coaching at Pitt right now.
Not Capel, Jason Capel.
Jason Capel. Yeah, he had like 22 and 20 rebounds against us in the state semis. We were behind most of the game there before we beat them. So we got to Kickotan. It was, they only had, I think 2 or 3 Division I players. We're kind of breathing easy at that point, but they were tough as well.
Yeah. Well, who did Capel play for again? I can't remember who. Was he down at the beach at the time?
Yeah, he was down the beach, and it's escaping me now. Before I go on, I don't have all my information because I dutifully, when I left Potomac, gave all of my scorebooks to Keith Honore. Okay. I mean, every one. Actually, the years before I was there.
Right.
So ask Keith where they are now.
Yeah.
He left it's not his fault. He left them in a storage area over the summer, and someone came in and cleaned it out, and they disappeared.
It looked like trash.
Oh gosh. I mean, everything was there. But no, so I don't remember. Now my buddy, so I don't forget, Chip Lozanak, who you remember Chip, who was my summer league. Well, Chip was let me tell you one of the things about why our program was so good. And it was the coaches we had. And Chip was my summer league coach for 18 to 20 years. We got the same guy, and he put everything into it. He was he kept my scorebook for the whole time I was coaching there. Just very, very dedicated to that thing. He could have told you, who it was, but yeah, I mean, Chip was there. You talked about some of my other coaches, Keith Honore, who's coach for me.
Mm-hmm.
He and Devon Johnson, and Devon's helping at Sherman right now.
Oh, good.
Them, Bill Lublin, Bob Lake,
I know Bobby.
Coach. Yeah. Bob's a great guy and very dedicated. JJ Jenkins also has been a varsity coach in different states across the country. Dan Carney, an assistant of mine who coached at Hilton for a while and is down in Atlanta. But I had wonderful, wonderful assistant coaches that were just dedicated. And when kids are getting, it's not just me. And we tried to split up as much as we could and do as much station work during practice. And, I'm not worried about what's happening on the other end of the floor, because I know I've got these guys that are just great coaches in their own right doing that. So I think that's another thing that really kept the kids coming through our program. It wasn't me, I was a part of it, but you had so many excellent guys there that it made it fun.
Well, I think you should probably get yourself credit, because I'm a big fan of the state tournament. I kept all my programs and all the games you're talking about. I was there, even though I might not have a memory of each of them. But one thing you did I'd never seen before, and in your state championship picture, you have the parents, you have everyone behind. I've looked at hundreds of programs. I've never seen anyone do that, and it sends a message that you appreciate them. You realize you can't do it without them. And, it keeps people loyal to you. They want to come back and be part of it the next time around. So, you got definitely deserve some credit for that.
Yeah, it's funny that photo there is, we didn't do it to try to keep kids coming, but the people there, our fans they were so dedicated to us. The parents, just everybody was just so into it. And I was just appreciative of all of them.
Yeah.
So we took that when we had our banquet, we set that up and took that, and it brings joy to my eyes every time I see that thing. And it's funny, on there is I'll look at that thing and I'll ask kids, I say, there's 2 ACC athletes up there. Can you point them out? And they look and they'll point one of the players, and it's not the 2 ACC athletes up there. One was Eric. He was up in the picture with his head kind of cocked to the side. He was like 6 years old, who played at the University of Maryland. And beside him is a neighbor of ours in Stafford, and she went on and swam at UVA. She was like 4 at the time. So those two, those are the 2 ACC, players there.
Yeah.
But certainly a lot of great memories from that group.
So, we were talking earlier about the Northwest region and how it's kind of a mismatch. Do you think would you have preferred if it took the 3 schools, and I guess eventually Hilton and Forest Park and maybe even Osborne Park and been part of the northern region, or do you think somehow this thing worked? Would you prefer to be, because the thing about the northern region is we had, and I'm sure you scouted games, we'd have this Final Four at Robinson and later on Mason.
Sure.
It was an amazing environment because, the teams that played, you've been playing against each other since you were kids, and travel and everyone came. It was a social scene. It was a really big deal. And it was a true neutral court. You didn't have to worry about going down to Danville, hear them barking up there in the stands, whatever they were doing. Would you have preferred that, or did you like the way it was?
I liked the way it was, but I was envious of that because, when I played at Groveton, I was kind of a part of that. And I got to experience that. And we didn't get to the Final Four or anything like that there, but I knew how important it was. And for a long time, I thought that the teams and maybe the coach, maybe not so much the coaches, but it just seemed like the teams winning the Northern region was more important than winning the state tournament if you were in the Northern region, where that wasn't the case in ours because that's the only time we saw the guys from Danville's when they'd show up to our gym or we'd show up to theirs. And, any of the other, and, maybe a little bit, maybe the Norfolk and Richmond was a little bit like Northern region, but ours was nothing at all like that. We had no sense of unity at all in that region. Whoever would win our region, if they're playing a Northern region team, I was rooting for the Northern region team. I had no special bond with Halifax or, Danville or any of those teams. But I was always envious of just the event of the Northern region championship and when you can pack Robinson and you got people standing around the court and that's a huge thing. It's just a wonderful thing for kids and all those that got to play in that environment. That's just a once in a lifetime thing because most of them aren't going to get to experience that in college. Even if you go to a decent sized college, you may never, play in that kind of environment. So I was always envious of that. One, because I didn't get to play in that, but I just knew how important it was for all the Northern region folks.
Yeah, I was chatting with someone on Facebook. A guy went to Flint Hill, Brian Domelick, and he was saying, well, Grant Hill could have gone to Flint Hill, and I look back on that. First of all, he's in the Hall of Fame. It's gone really well for him, but the environment that he had when Grant Hill played that Wakefield team that we were talking about earlier, right? That game was unbelievable. I mean, there must have been 6,000 people in there. They were packed in there. I mean, the electricity, it was like a Mike Tyson fight, and there were other years when I was a senior, Mount Vernon had a great team and TC was amazing. And it was the same type of thing. I mean, it was just packed and it was such an honor to play. And one of the reasons why it meant more than the state tournament, as you were saying before, is that we didn't have much of a chance to win state anyway. So we better win that game while we could. That's funny. But so anyway, we were talking about Garfield and Woodbridge. I'm good friends with Will Robinson because he came to Robinson the year I graduated. Right. And Coach McKeag, who I played for, he brought him up there because he had a real special team with some great guards, and he knew Will was the great guy to coach these guys. So he taught Will and the Lehman, a great team, to end up winning state the year after without him. He talked him into coming up and helping, and he changed my game as a guard. I mean, I learned so much from just the summer league. The summer I played with him, and then I'd come back every summer and play. I was at UVA playing, and he was an amazing coach. And then I knew Andy Gray a lot because I'd referee down there and stuff. Did you guys are in real close quarters? I mean, it was like a tiny northern region right there, especially when Forest Park and Hilton came up. Did you guys have a good relationship with those bitter rivalries, or did you guys have?
Yes, we had good relationships, I believe, and the rivalries were very bitter. Both of those guys made me a much better coach because I know Andy did some stuff that was very different than what Will did, but when Will showed up, we ran a lot of pattern stuff. And it took me one game playing against Woodbridge to realize that this ain't going to work against them. And it changed, our philosophy offensively into what we did, because we taught them more how to play, as opposed to, you go here and you go here and you're going to do this, and then next we're going to do that. Well, if you're getting trapped after the first you go, now where do we do, coach? It's one of those things. So, we kind of changed up, how we were going to play, because of that. And when you are putting stuff in, frankly, you're putting stuff in to beat the best team that you're going to play. So, we would put stuff in so we could beat Woodbridge and we could beat Garfield. And, it's no knock on the other teams, but they were the better teams.
Right.
If what we put in is going to beat Woodbridge, then it's going to beat the other guys too, in all likelihood. So, that's the case. And we also would, we'd save stuff for them. We knew that we'd be scouted, and okay, here's a couple wrinkles we're going to run against these guys that they haven't seen, and they've got, no clue. And so you save stuff for them, and they probably did, the same for us. But both of them excellent coaches, just, great programs. And you knew you were going to have to prepare, and you're gonna have to be good to beat those guys. And but they both, I think they brought the best out of me as a coach, and certainly out of our teams.
Yeah.
And they humbled me, on more than one occasion. So when that happens, if you got any drive and fire, you're gonna want to get back at it.
Yeah, Coach Robinson had some real good teams in the early '90s, and Garfield did too. I really liked Garfield's team when they had Skip Saunders and Scroggins and Perkins. I really love that team that he had.
Larry Bell was coaching them then.
That's right.
Larry was coaching. Now, just a little story for that Woodbridge probably doesn't want to hear about, but I'm teaching in driver's ed, and I've got a PE class at Laverne High School, which is about 25 minutes from where I live here in Nashville. And our coach, we got a new coach this year, basketball coach, it's Tony Rutland.
Is that right?
Yeah. So Tony, who played at Bethel when Iverson was there, and the whole, Breon, when, Breon Dunlap cramped up in the last, 3 or 4 seconds and couldn't shoot the free throws.
That's right.
They ended up going to overtime, and Bethel ends up winning the state championship. And, that was the semifinals. But, had Breon been able to shoot, either one of them with his eyes closed or with his left hand, I know he'd have found a way to make at least one of them to beat Bethel. So, that was a shame. But yeah, I mentioned that to him, and he says, yeah, we lucked out on that one. That was fortunate for us. But so he's our coach down there now. And
are you helping him? Are you helping him out some, or are you just staying away from him?
No, I'm staying away. I'm coming home after school and enjoying the grandkids next door. And so it's going well.
So I was at UVA for 7 years down there, and then went to grad school as well. So I did AAU games, and we're talking about earlier how Northern Region was separate. It was funny because Northern Region played Potomac Valley; they weren't even there, and the rest of the state would be in Charlottesville for states every year. Mm-hmm. And so the Potomac, Woodbridge, Garfield, you guys would have a team. Right. And one of the best years is when there was Iverson, Rutland. I think they had a couple big men. I don't think it was Bryant Stiff, but they had a really great team, and you guys had a real good team. I forgot what your team was called, the one from Prince William.
I think we were the Pacers. We kind of switched. I think we may have been the Pacers for a while. Who knows? But it wasn't real stable. But we did have some good kids come through.
Yeah, you competed. So so I saw Rutland a lot. So anyway, after the '95 championship, which was huge, you guys went through and I didn't even know this, because when you're from the Northern Region, one state tournament is something to celebrate, even retire on. But one thing Sherman said, that he felt like he had the reputation of being, kind of the almost guy. What do you call himself? But you get close and then can't quite get over the
Buffalo
hump.
Bills, yeah,
that kind of thing. So I guess over the next several years, you guys got really close. I think you probably got to the final at least 2 or 3 more times.
We got there 3 times, and I'll tell you that you mentioned something about games that still come back and haunt me. Well, the following year in 96, the 95, 96 year, that's when Roland Roberts was a senior. Calvin Hargett, Mookie was a part of that team. And we had quite a team there. And we went down to William Fleming. And on the tip, the jump ball, Roland got called for a foul.
It's going to be a long night.
No, yeah, it was a long night. And he got called for a foul on the jump ball. So, you look up at the clock and it's 7:59 in the first quarter and he's got a foul. And then, of course, he gets another foul right after. I think Roland probably played, I don't know, maybe 18 minutes. And it just very disappointing for him. He ended up with 4 fouls, and you never know exactly when you should put him back in. But these guys, they were having, when I talk about, home cooking and that sort of stuff, when you go down there, you knew it was going to happen. And the worst part was we came and tied the thing up. And with about 10 seconds, maybe less than 10 seconds to go, they had a guard out on the perimeter. And I think it was Mookie that went around and did a little sickle move and slapped the ball out of his hands. It took a direct bounce to their post player who had his right hand out down low, caught it, and he scored. I mean, the kid never would have thrown a pass that good, and it got tipped from away. He never even touched the thing, and they ended up scoring and beating us. But yeah, that was a great team. That was a team that certainly could have won it again, and very disappointing that we didn't get a crack at it. But like I say, we had that happens.
Yeah, that was the year that George Washington won it. They won the whole thing. I think I forgot which George Washington though, because they won 2 in the 90s. But that was a really good team. I would have liked to have seen you guys play against them.
Well, they beat us in the, what year was it? Was it Sherman's? I don't know if it was Sherman's. No, it was his junior year. Yeah, his junior year, because Mookie wasn't playing. I'm not going to get into that whole story, but we went into the regional tournament without our best player and won the region. We went down. That was the one time we went down and played GW Danville. And I forget the college that's down there, to the D3 school.
Is that, I think it's Everett College.
Everett. Yeah. We played there and they were beating us. I don't know. We're down 12 at halftime. It was like, 35-23. I mean, we were just getting pummeled. And all right, so we'll go to this zone that we hadn't a press. So we hadn't done much. It was like a 2-2-1. We really hadn't practiced a whole lot, but what do we have to lose? And lo and behold, that thing kept working and kept working. And we had the thing tied with like 3.5 seconds to go in the game. And we're taking the ball out at half court, kind of a little behind half court. And they're like waiting to pick us up. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, we got to Sherman, and Sherman took 2 or 3 dribbles and banked in a shot from just outside the foul line. And we won by 2, and bedlam ensued. I mean, there was about 40 or 50 of us there, and, they all kind of just stalked off, but they beat us pretty good in the state championship game. By the time we'd gotten to them, we were so banged up, and we really had very little chance without Mookie out there for that thing. But anyway, that was the one time we won there down in Danville.
Yeah, one of the greatest high school games, or at least performances that I've ever seen. And I get my years mixed up. So I went down to the Scope, and it was going to be this big matchup. It was going to be Cliff Hawkins versus Ronald Curry, and I didn't realize that, but you guys already played that year. I was reading an old press.
We played in the year they beat us in the state championship the year before.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go down to the Scope, and I get there really early. I mean, I'm there an hour and a half for the game. There is a line like a mile long to get in that place, and I'm just like, I'm going to drive. I drove all the way, from Fairfax. I'm not going to be able to get into this game, and I did get in right around game time. I don't know where these people were. I don't know how all of us could have gotten there an hour and a half early and no one be in the gym. I got there right at game time. One of the greatest performances I've ever seen. I mean, I've always thought Ronald Curry was more of a football player, and I think they were kind of swept up in this Terry Kirby thing where he was a great athlete, definitely a great player, but I really was not surprised that how Cliff Hawkins treated him that night.
Yeah, that was good. And we got up and kind of hung on at the end on that thing.
That's right.
We did not, their inside players were they had two big dudes. And I think both of them had 20 points and 15 to 18 rebounds. And we had a hard time dealing with them. But that's the one team we didn't want to run with. So we played a little 2-2-1 press just to slow them down, and it worked well. And Curry didn't shoot very well from the perimeter, and he kept shooting. And Cliff did shoot well from the perimeter, and had a few just spectacular moments there in that game. But it was that was fun. So your neutral site where you play the Hampton Crabbers at Hampton Coliseum. But it was very satisfying to come back and beat them after what they'd done to us the year before.
Yeah, that was definitely one of your best teams, at least from my point of view. In terms of, I mean, when you have a Cliff Hawkins, he's a very special player,
Right.
And I guess the year after he went to Oak Hill.
Yeah.
So we were talking about earlier the private school thing. Do you think you would have had any more success than these guys these days keeping these kids in public school, or you think that time has passed? I mean, you think you'd have a plan to keep them, or what do you think?
No, I mean, what's your plan? Please stay. I mean, we like you. We've got good classes too. I mean, when you got guys dangling, these delusions of grandeur, in front of kids, it's tough to deal. And we lost kids as it was. Particularly the last like 3 or 4 years, we had 2 or 3, D1 kids that didn't go to our school because they'd gotten, recruited away. And if that's what a parent wants to do, certainly that's up to them. It hurts as a coach, but I don't know that I'd been any more successful than anybody else in keeping them. Although we certainly had kids that had options of doing that, and there were rumors from time to time that this guy may go somewhere and he may go but most of them didn't come to fruition.
Yeah, it's pretty alarming. A buddy of mine's son plays for Centerville. He's a player of the year in the region, Northern region, and he really doesn't have a Division I scholarship. And I was going through my own my senior year at Robinson. We had 8 Division I players in my senior year in a 6-team district. And as we talked about before, we were known as a stacked region or district, but there were Division I players everywhere. And it just goes to show you how far it's gone when there's not many players in the area that makes up the Northern region can get Division I scholarships anymore.
Yeah, it's certainly a combination of things. A lot of it is the fact that you've got so many private schools, and they're luring away the best players. And I think there's a misconception that if you want to get a scholarship, that's where you have to go. That's not true. You can look at all the number of very good players in the past that have gone and to public schools, but how many kids there even know who Grant Hill is? I'll ask kids in class, well, do you know so and so? And they look at me like I've got four eyes or something. They have no idea what I'm talking about, and I just assume that they know who it is. So I don't know that they're impressed with who's succeeded in the past in a public school. I don't think that really has a lot of bears a lot of weight with them.
So let's talk a little bit about Eric. And you have twin girls, or you have 2 girls that play.
I had one. I've got 2 daughters. One, one was a dancer, went to University of Tennessee and danced there. And then Eric came next, and then Hannah's the youngest. She played as well. But,
so one thing you've done that I have not been able to do, like I've got great kids, but I've never been able to get my kids interested in basketball. I wasn't as good a player as you were. Definitely not as good a coach as you were. But how did you get Eric? Was Eric just hanging around the gym and he had ability, or did you coach him? Did you drill him, or what was Eric's development like?
Erica was a gym rat. He was, he'd come to practice, and from the time he was even at 3 years old, he'd be at the practice. It's funny. We had just a quick story about him. We had a district playoff game at Stonewall Jackson, and I don't know where the video of this thing is, but he was just shy of 2 years old and took a basketball and had his overalls that his mom put him in, and he's out there dribbling the basket. I think he dribbled like 63 times without stopping, and a couple times stopped and kind of looked up and kept pounding it. And he just always been attracted to that. I came home from school one time, and this is during the ACC tournament. I asked where Eric is, and his mom just points to the other room, and he's 5 years old, sitting there. He starting at noon. He was sitting there watching the games, and it was probably 3 o'clock when I got there. She said, he hadn't moved since the game started. So it was something that interested him. I think he knew it was an interest to me, because that's what Dad did. Dad was in the gym all the time, and he just took to it, and just always was out there playing and absorbing. And I think one of the reasons he was such a good player is that he understood the game really better than anybody he was out there on the court with. And that just came from years of watching and observing, and he'd come to practices. And, I think when he was going into his 8th grade year, I had a couple seniors say, can't he just go here, this year? Can't you move him up to the, to the 9th grade? Because, they wanted him to play with them. He made everybody else better on the court. And I think that was probably his best asset. Kids enjoyed playing with him, and he made them better.
When he was growing up, were you tough on him? So when he played, travel county, whatever you call it, would you critique him? Were you tough on him, or did you just support him? You hear all these theories about how you should handle, young athletes.
Right. Well, I think all of them have to be handled different. I don't think I was real tough on him. I think he was tough on himself. So I didn't have to be. I can remember him coming home from a camp we had one time, and I don't know, he's 6 or 7 years old, and he was crying because he was having trouble making a left-hand layup. And, so he was out there he's out there shooting left-hand layups, and it wasn't long before that wasn't an issue anymore. So, I think he was tougher on himself. But he just always was so into it. And he was a good player from the start. Bart Belair's, I don't know if you know Bart, who was at VMI. He coached there for about 10 years. We took our team to team camp there for a number of years. And I think Eric was in the 3rd or 4th grade. And he says, "Hey, I'm going to offer him right now. So just understand that if he wants to accept before he leaves, it's all." And you could tell at an early age he was going to be a good, good player.
VMI would have done really well with Eric.
Yeah, he would have been.
So what was it like coaching? Did you enjoy coaching your son? Was it tough to coach your own son? Or what was?
Well, not really. No, just because, it's not, once again, he was unselfish. It's not like the coach's son is getting, 25 shots and he's jacking this and doing that, and he's throwing the ball off the wall, and the coach is, leaving him out there. I think if you're coaching your own son, your son either has to be real good or not very good, because in between, anywhere in between, you've got, the parents and the other players, what's he out there for? My son's this and that. And had the luxury with him of, they weren't better than him. He was better than everybody else. Yeah. And so there really wasn't a bunch of controversy as to whether he should be out there or not. And then all the other kids were just drawn to him. No, it was a joy really coaching him and I got to coach him AAU from the time he was, 6 years old up. So we had some just great AAU, he had some great AAU teammates and kids that I got to coach, going up there, from six on up, and just nothing but happy memories there.
Was it kind of like a hangover when he graduated? Did you were you beginning to think about retiring from coaching?
Well, I did. Yeah. When he when he graduated, I stepped down just because his mom and I wanted to see him play. And
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
as much as I liked coaching, I just didn't want to devote 70%, and I wanted my heart to be all in. And if I was going to do that, and if I wanted to go see him play, that was going to kind of put a damper on that. As it turned out, I don't know. I think Eric may have had 125 games, and I think his mom and I made it to 120 of them. So
Is that right? That's awesome.
we drove wherever it was, however the weather was, in snowstorms and ice storms. Went down to Virginia Tech in an ice storm, and went down to Clemson, major storm. We actually took off Friday for a Sunday game, and got there Sunday morning. So yeah, wherever he was playing, we got there, and it was a fun ride. But yeah, that's why I stopped. I still had the itch to coach at that point in time, but I just couldn't serve two masters there, so to speak.
Yeah. Is Eric still in basketball, or what's Eric up to these days?
Eric right now, no, he's building houses. He's here in the Nashville area. Yeah,
awesome.
He's a project manager and building houses, and
awesome.
I think he likes the fact he's not sitting at a desk, and
yeah,
he gets up bright and early and goes and lifts weights and works out, and he doesn't look like a skinny point guard anymore. I can assure you that. Yeah, he's a big strong man. He actually turns 34 tomorrow.
Wow.
So
I mean, that must be old.
Tell me about it.
So how about Hannah? Is your ball player?
Uh-huh.
So what about her? I don't want to give her short shrift here. What was her development? And tell us a little bit about coaching girls as opposed to coaching the boys at Potomac.
All right. Well, I'll start with the girls thing first. I think that one of the girls, most of them don't take it quite as seriously as the boys. I mean, it's serious when the game starts and that, but just all the auxiliary things, it's not quite as big an event for them. This is from what I found. I only did this for 2 years, so it's not an all-encompassing statement. But the girls also tend to pack all their problems on their back and take them out on the court with them, whereas the guys, who knows what's happened, to them prior to that, but they step onto the court, and this is an outlet for them. You'd never know if they had a good day, a bad day, anything about it. They were playing basketball. And the girls, you'd kind of see somebody moping around a little bit. All right, what's the problem? And frankly, I was just kind of thrust into that position, and I didn't really have the temperament to hug and cuddle too much. I just wasn't accustomed to doing that. And I wasn't the greatest girls coach, to be clear.
So you have a lot of respect for the Fred Priesters and the guys who've won all those, because it's a different skill set. I mean, it's still basketball, but it's a different thing. Right?
It is. Now, the one thing that doesn't change, once the game starts, it's the X's and O's, and the competition is great. I love that. That was really something. Yeah. But it's just getting to that point where I didn't have the skill set to do that. And, but, getting to Hannah, I think Hannah did a lot of this, maybe because Dad was a coach and she wanted to please me a little bit. Her heart really wasn't in it quite as well as Eric's was. And she was a very good shooter, great passer. Yeah, she passed the ball exceptionally well. She ended up getting a scholarship to Mars Hill D school.
Yeah.
Scored 22 points in her second game, and then decided to retire. That was, she kind of hit the high water mark. She didn't want to play basketball anymore.
Is that right?
Yeah. She left, and that was the end of her career. But she left on a high note. So
wow. Yeah, most people score 22. The next game they want 24.
Yeah. But it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Mom and I got to see the game, because we got there, and it's a good thing we came to the early one, because the ones we planned to go back to in January never came about.
Yeah. So how did you end up? How'd you end up going to Tennessee? I guess it was your oldest daughter in Tennessee, and you joined her. And how'd the whole thing come to be?
Yeah, well, my daughter, like I said, she went to the University of Tennessee. She was on the dance team there, and actually captain of the dance team, and they won the national championship her senior year. which was a wonderful accomplishment.
Yeah.
She
You just won a state championship. She won a national championship. You won. Yeah.
That's true. And she doesn't really rub it in, but I think when she looks at me, she knows.
That's right.
Yeah, but she married Austin Rogers, who was a wide receiver on the UT football team.
Oh, okay.
And Austin's from Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And Nan and I, my wife, we knew that it was a little expensive just to retire in the northern, Virginia area.
Sure.
And it was getting a little bit too congested, and we just wanted just a step back from all that, and came down here, I guess preemptively ahead of grandchildren. We knew they'd be in the offering at some point in time, so we came down and lived with them for about 3 or 4 months, and then found a house. And at that point in time, I got a job at Laverne High School. I've been there 7 years now.
Is that right? It's been 7?
Yeah, double dipping as long as I can, as long as they'll have me, as long as I feel good.
Right.
But yeah, doing that. And then we moved, we were about 35 minutes away. And then my son-in-law built us a house that was about, 15, 20 minutes away. And then the house next door to them became available. So we bought that one, and he redid this home, a beautiful home here right next to them. So we have to go out, and it takes us about 30 seconds to get over to our grandkids. There's 4 of them now.
That's amazing.
My wife goes over and takes good care of them each day. And, I see them probably, 5-6 days a week, I see the grandkids. So yeah, it's very nice.
Those are things that you can't even fathom in Northern Virginia, just when you hear the cost of living here, you're just trying to survive and to make it to retirement. But it's nice to hear you found a nice home and you got your whole family there and extended family there.
Yeah. Hannah's living here. Eric is here. All 3 kids are, within 15, 20 minutes, and the grandkids, and it's a real blessing. Now in Alexandria, my mom is she's still living in Alexandria now.
Okay.
My brother and, his family. But other than that, and, all the close friends I have, still back in the Northern Virginia area, I miss that. And I miss seeing a lot of those people. But it's a nice life here, and it's a, nice lifestyle, and it's not, it's still the big city, but it's not, nothing like the congestion. I mean, people complain about traffic here now and then, and I just roll my eyes and look at them, and, they've never had to get to Stafford or get to Fredericksburg at 6 o'clock in the evening, anything like that. So yeah, it's a lot nicer here in terms of your traffic and those types of things.
Yes, what is interesting here is during COVID, and it's definitely not worth all the death, but traffic has really died down a little bit now. A lot of folks are working at home, so it's going to be interesting to see whether when things go back to normal, whether it's going to click back and it's going to be traffic. I was out. My son had a game out in Howison Park a few weeks. He's a soccer player, and it was traffic. And I was thinking, I live in Arlington. We don't have a lot of traffic because we're already inside the Beltway. And I was thinking whether I could live in that traffic, because every day you're long lines and lights and stuff, and it's just a different lifestyle down there.
I guess you get used to it. I don't know. My buddy Chip, he went into the Pentagon every day for 20 some years from Woodbridge. And, he used to moan and groan about it. He'd try to leave early and, come back early. And I think he beat the traffic, many a time, but you never know when it's going to get bad. I mean, I taught driver's ed for, over 20 years at Woodbridge. I mean, at Potomac, in the Woodbridge area. And we couldn't even go on the we'd take them on the interstate, but by the end of the last period of the day, we'd try to get on the interstate, and it's packed right there in Dumfries. So, we'd go 234 and then 66, and we had these long periods. So we'd drive all over Creation, but couldn't use 95.
Yeah. And so no more basketball. So your involvement in basketball is completely over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's funny. I came down here thinking, well, I could get a basketball job someplace.
Yeah.
I'll bet I applied, oh, I don't know, between 15 and 20 jobs. Nothing.
Wow. That's
Crickets.
unbelievable.
Yeah, well, the first one, Hickman High School, was 0-21 the year before.
You sure you want that job?
I should have known when I didn't get that one that it wasn't. And I had one AD who set up a phone interview for me at a school here in the city, and he never called. He blew
That's
it off.
crazy.
So I never got a single interview. And so last year I just said enough. 2 years ago, I'm not even going to bother looking anymore. It's not. It's who you know. It's who you know.
That is insane. You've won a state championship. You've been to the state final, what, four times? I mean,
it means nothing. It means nothing. So,
yeah.
I never really thought all that highly of myself to start with. So I guess that's good. That if you have too much self-esteem, and I think you'd really get crushed by that. But we just kind of laughed about it, and you move on. Hey, Lord, he's got me where he wants me, and I'm doing what I want to do. And if I'd gotten one of those jobs, I wouldn't have this time with my grandkids and my family. Yeah. It's all working out well.
Yeah, I mean, and let's face it, coaching is wonderful. I've done it myself, not to the extent you have, and I cherish relationships that I built with the kids that I coached. But most of the reward you get from coaching is the relationships. I mean, if you don't get to the next level, it's really tough. So sometimes, I gave up officiating for the same reason, and that you make pretty good money with officiating, but you're the time away from your family. So there is a cost to it. And so when I gave it up, I realized I had a lot more time to do other things that I wouldn't have had.
It is nice. Yeah, we have a couple older coaches at our school. There's one lady that's coached softball there for a number of years, and this is the first year she hasn't done it, and she's just amazed at how much time she has, and she's not missing it at all when she thought that she would. And it's nice having a little free time.
Yeah. Well, Coach, look, I want you to know that I always had a lot of respect for you. High school basketball was king to me in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, I lived for the regional tournaments and the state tournaments, and you always represented yourself so well in the team and the Northern Virginia. You did such an amazing job with the kids, and I can always tell that the kids had a lot of affection for you. And very difficult personalities, a lot of the type of kids that some coaches wouldn't be able to deal with. And I always thought you did an amazing job of keeping kids in school and keeping them in the program. So, I want you to know that you really had a great effect. Truly one of the greatest coaches in the history of Northern Virginia. So
that's nice of you to say. Like I say, I had a lot of help, and I had a lot of just great kids come through there, and with great attitudes. You may say they're a little difficult, and I think all kids are difficult in some aspects. But the difficulties I had to put up with, just paled in comparison to to what they gave me and gave the school and gave each other, because there was just a real bond amongst the kids and the coaches and the fans, and it was just one of those special things that you don't really have the formula for creating this thing. You wish you could recreate it, someplace else, or tell others how to do it, and you can't. Everything just sort of has to fall into place, and it did. And I was just very fortunate to be a part of that, and just wonderful memories. And it's always fun when I get to see some of my former players. You get to hug them and just tell them you appreciate them, because I did. The guys just from the get-go really gave it all, and for them, being a Potomac Panther was important to them, and a big part of their life. Even though they haven't played in years and years, and I'm just glad I was a part of it. Before I go, I've got a relic here that I'll show you that Winky gave me when he was cleaning out his closet.
Wow. Is that black, or is that dark blue, or is that dark green?
No, it's black. It's old gold, gold and black. And if you remember, when I was in high school, my numbers you had to have numbers because you were a ref. You refs weren't capable of you had to have even numbers at home and odd on
That's
the
right.
road. So
That's right. We did
I
that.
was 52 at home and 55 on the road because there was
Yeah.
no 53. It's funny, when I went to college, I was 52 and 53. And I don't know when that rule stopped, when you guys actually, got smart enough that you could, call a foul on somebody that was even on the road. But
Yeah. I
I
think it's
give
early
all the
80s. They
credit for
probably
that.
stopped
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Well, 51, 55, those are big numbers. I don't know too many players that were successful with numbers that big. Usually you got a nice single digit number like Julius Erving, number 6 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, we certainly none of those things, but yeah, the stiffs got. If you got a 50, you figure you're a stiff, or at least they thought you were. So you had to prove them wrong when they gave you a 50 something. I had to make it look cool.
Yeah, yeah. They gave you a number. That means stay in the paint. So,
Yes, yes.
yeah. Well, thanks. Well, Coach, I want you to thanks again for so much time. Again, I really appreciate it. Can't wait to post this thing. I'm sure the folks that really enjoy basketball and in the state tournament games that you play, they're going to really enjoy listening to you tell those stories. So I really appreciate you doing this.
Well, I appreciate you having me. It was fun, and it's I'll look forward to whomever you have next, because I learned a lot from Jim, and
Yeah.
you've got 2 former Groveton Tigers in a row. You're going to probably have to get someone else involved that didn't go to Groveton, just to make someone feel better, I think. But
I didn't even realize that, but I knew that, but I didn't put that. I better go back to Robinson now. I'm going to lose all my friends.
Yeah, you need to. But anyway, I appreciate this. This was a lot of fun, and what you're doing is great. It's bringing back a lot of memories for a lot of people, and memories are a good thing. And when you can recollect some excellent memories, it's a great thing. And you're doing a great thing for a lot of people, and we all appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. So thanks for your involvement into the group. You're a big name, and when you're involved, it's like you and Red Jenkins and Coach Lewis and all these great coaches have been involved. And once that happened, then we got these Division I players that are posting every day. It has. Thanks for the compliment. It's been an amazing team effort on everyone's part. So I've enjoyed it. So
okay. Well, I'll give this one a thumbs up. All right, so I'll thumbs up this one.
That's good. Well, again, thanks again for your time, and let's keep in touch. Hopefully, we can touch base again one of these days.
That'd be great. If you ever need anything, just give me a holler. I'd be more than happy to help out.
Okay, I'll be knocking on your door one day, and if you need
right.
a reference for one of these Nashville little private school, tell them that.
If Hickman has another 0-21 season, I'll give you a call, and maybe you can talk to the AD for me.
Yeah, we'll show them this videotape maybe.
Good stuff.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Coach. Let's be in touch.
All right. Take care. Thank you very much.
Okay, buddy. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.